What's up, everyone? My name is Daniel Karan, founder of Boldwolves.com, and today I have a special treat for you. I'm going to be introducing Sunny Prasad, the founder of Endless Vitality, and we're going to be going over meditation, awareness, mindfulness, vitality, how you can use it, practical tips, and just a really, really good person. I can't wait to dive into this. This is something that I've never really done before, kind of like an interview-based questionnaire type collaboration. So I'd love to know your thoughts, and I'm excited to dive in. So don't give us a hard time while we go deep in. So, Sonny, anything to say?
Well, thank you for introducing me. Again, like Daniel said, my name is Sunny Prasad. From Endless Vitality, I have a channel where I talk about a lot of different stuff, but mainly related to health and wellness and meditation and stuff. So, yeah, I'm excited to talk to you, and whatever questions you have, let's dive deep and talk about that.
Yes. All right. So let's get started with how we met. You can go first, and then I'll give my recollection.
That sounds like a movie title, How We Met.
Part one and part two.
So I think it was maybe last year or a little bit longer. I was in Miami visiting some friends, and I think I met you through another friend of ours, a mutual friend that we had. And I think the way I met you is, I was talking to him on the phone. We're both in Miami at this point, and he's like, "Hey man, I gotta introduce you to this guy. Like, you're gonna love talking to him because he's into a lot of the things that you're into. He's like into doing meditation and self help and all that stuff."
Yes.
I'm like, "Oh, dude, I'm excited. I'm always looking to meet people who are sort of like minded and on that frequency." So I remember meeting you in Miami a year and a half ago, and then we just instantly connected, and we had so much great things to talk about because we've been doing very similar stuff for a while now.
Yeah, for
Well,
sure. And then I
what,
remember we went out, had a good
yeah,
time. It was
yeah,
definitely good. So
yeah,
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 and I remember we only talked. We were going to meet the next day, but it never panned out for some reason. And we only talked for, let's say, an hour, 2 hours. Would you agree to that?
yeah.
Like if
Probably
we were
more.
to actually talk between you and me, and not just like in a group setting or a group environment, it's probably like 2 hours or less.
Yeah, it's probably less than that. I mean, I know we went out to Nikki Beach
Yeah.
in Miami, and we had a great time. We were socializing, talking to tons of people, but like you and I, just one on one, probably less than an hour, to be honest. And
Less than an
just
hour,
that, we
for sure.
connected really well. Yeah.
Yeah. So it goes to show that this connection that we've made lasts less than an hour, and it's been like a year. And during that time, we didn't really talk for like 8 or 9, 10 months, right? Or like a year since we
Right.
met. But the bond that we created that night still stayed. So
Mm.
anyone that you can meet at any night could have such a big influence. I just wanted to point that out. That's pretty interesting. So we could get started by going over, let's say, your definition of what vitality is, and why kind of health, a focus on health, wellness, vitality especially, is important for men.
Sure. So first of all, it's important for everyone, but we'll talk
Only
like
for men.
men, right? Only. But what's my definition of vitality? Sometimes when we think about vitality, we could think about just your physical health, but that's just one aspect of vitality. The way I think about vitality, I think about it's your physical health, but beyond that, it's also your mental health, your spiritual health, just overall your well-being. And if you come across into the world as someone who's just spiritually vibrant, someone who's just radiating that kind of positive vibes, then you have that kind of vitality about you. Like there's just there's something. It's almost like, for lack of better terms, like you have this aura around you,
Mm.
and yeah, I mean that's in a nutshell. That's what when I think about vitality, that's what it means to me.
Yeah, and I remember I would hear that maybe a year or two ago and be like, that's so new agey. Like, fuck that shit. Like, this is so lame. Like, what is he talking about? An aura around me. But as you kind of develop, let's say, your spiritual growth or your well-being, like you said, mental, physical, emotional well-being, there really is this, call it a vibe, whatever you want to call it in your own belief system, this vibration that surrounds you that people notice. Whether it's like you're walking into Starbucks and you just brighten people's days, or just great things happen to you. Um, it definitely occurs. And I remember I could just like correlate to like when I'm having a bad day, let's say no sleep, bad food. Those days still happen rarely, but it doesn't. Like the aura is like disappears. So how can someone, men, develop this emotional, physical, mental, spiritual? Just keep naming stuff. How could they develop this health? We'll group it into vitality. All this like emotional, spiritual.
Yeah. So overall vitality. So first of all, just like you mentioned, we've all met people who just there's something about them that we just gravitate towards, and you usually see someone that just everyone is gravitate towards them. And again, it's this unspoken thing that someone has, and that's what I call that vibration, that vitality. So how can you up your vitality? How can you actually tap into that? Now again, it's a tall task in the sense that you're always going to be improving, and I'm going to name some practical things that you could be doing. But there's never an end point. The way I look at it is, so you don't get to a point where like, okay, finally, like I've achieved it. Here I am. That never really happens.
Sure.
I mean, I've met hundreds of people, and no one has arrived at any place. Sure. But it's a lifelong journey. It's a process. So what are some practical things that you could do? Again, the big one for me and for many people that I met is meditation. Now, here's the thing. Some people would get turned off by the word meditation, and especially men, because just generally speaking, meditation and yoga and stuff like that resonates more with women than men, just very generally speaking, right? So the thing is that men, in many ways, there's no difference. Like men would benefit from it exactly the same way a woman would. And I would even go and say that men would probably benefit more than women would, is because, again, generalization, but generally speaking, men are more in their head than women are. Women are much more in their body. It's easier for them to do that. You could see, like, if you go out to a nightclub or anything, you could see women just moving and dancing, and they're just more in their body, where a man's just like, in their head all the time.
For sure.
And we've all been there. Yeah. So I think meditation is one big one. Besides that, I mean, other few things that I'm just going to throw out there that would really help men and people in general to kind of tap into that vitality are things like working out, physicality, any kind of workout, whatever you like doing. You could be lifting weights, you could be running, you could be doing yoga, any kind of workout. Beyond that, one other big one is the influences that you have in your life, the things that you're surrounding yourself with. I call that your energetic body. So you have like an energetic body that is taking in all this outside things that are coming in. So things like social media and what you're watching, what you're listening to, the people that you're hanging out with, whether you know it or not, all of that is affecting you. So yeah, just in a nutshell, those three things, I'd say meditation, physical activity, working out, gym, and then the kind of influences from day to day in your life.
For sure. So I would say that there's maybe like three groups of people with a certain point of view, and this is just my first sense of from what you just said. From my own experience, there's three types of people. There's the people that are listening to this that already meditate on a daily basis. They've developed this practice. It wasn't necessarily hard, but they had a strong why behind it, and they've been able to develop. For me, it was never very difficult to start meditating. Once I got into the habit with different apps like Headspace, I started and I've continued for years ever since. So there's like that one group. I'd say the second group is they've heard about meditation and they're like, they know it's good. and it kind of goes into that part of their brain where it's like, I know it's good, but whatever. And there's this, I know it's good, but I don't actually do it, right?
That's probably.
And then there's the people that are like, everyone's talking about it. It's becoming very mainstream. And personally, anything that becomes mainstream for me, and this is just, it's not right or wrong, but everything that becomes mainstream, I'm like, fuck that shit. I don't even like it anymore. Meditation is one of the few things that is extremely mainstream, and it's getting more and more popular with people like Oprah and everyone just talking about it. And I was just, and the more mainstream it gets, I think the better it is for society. So there's the people that look at it becoming mainstream, this like third group, and they're like, I don't even think it's that important. I know there's benefits and all this. There's like hundreds of benefits. Fuck all those benefits. It's not really that. I don't need to use it to be successful. I don't need to use it to achieve my goals. So would you agree with this kind of third group where is it mandatory in order to be an elite performer, a high performing individual, to meditate? Is it required?
Yeah, that's a very good analysis and a very good question. So I completely agree with that three types of people. And that's not just with meditation, but with anything, right?
Mm.
So even if you take, for example, things like going to the gym regularly, there are people who know that the benefits of going to the gym regularly. They do that. They have a regular practice. They have a regular workout routine.
Yes.
And then there are people who know it's good for you, but just don't do it. And that's the majority in any kind of field.
Yes.
And then you have those people who just say, oh, well, it's, there's no point. Like, it's not that beneficial. Like, I got stuff to do and, I have more important things. And, that's what it is, right? So, okay. So the question is it helpful or is it even required to perform your optimal best? So let's kind of like look into this. First of all, the big thing about meditation, without even going into like this spiritual realm of meditation and all that stuff, like forget about all that. If you're a skeptic, great. I was a huge skeptic. Like back in the days when I first got into all this stuff, I was a huge skeptic. I didn't believe in anything. So just look at meditation as a very practical tool, a very, very practical stress relieving tool. That's it. Just look at meditation as a stress relieving tool. Now, we don't have to argue whether meditation is helpful in terms of relieving stress or not, because it's scientifically proven. There's been research done, it's documented, and anyone can go online and look for it. So meditation does help manage stress. Just a very quick story. The thing with stress is that most of us don't even know the amount of stress that we're carrying with us, like in our body, in our mind. We're just not aware of it.
For sure.
I remember maybe about 2 years ago, I went to see this holistic Ayurvedic doctor, and I've done some Ayurveda as like ancient medicine practice and stuff. So I go to see her, and at this point I'm pretty good at managing stress. I'm going to the gym regularly, I'm working out, and I'm doing a lot of stuff to really take care of myself, and I'm pretty good at managing stress. And I did not feel that I had a lot of stress in my life at that point, even though I had a very high intensity kind of lifestyle. I was doing a lot of stuff, but I didn't feel I had that much stress. So she kind of does her initial diagnosis and she, reads my pulse and does all that stuff. And then she looks at me and she's like, you have a lot of stress. And I'm looking at her, I'm like, well, what are you talking about? I don't really feel stressed.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, you have, like, I'm pretty sure you have very high level of cortisol and, you have a lot of stress that you don't even know you have. And I'm like, wow, like, okay, I never knew this. And then the best analogy I like to give is stress is almost like, imagine you're in a room where the AC is on in the background and you have the AC noise going on, but you're talking to people, you have friends around, you're just hanging out, and you don't realize that AC is making noise until you turn it off. And you turn off the AC, and then you're like, wow, it's so much quieter now, it's so much peaceful. You never knew the noise existed until it turned off. And stress is just like that. You don't know how much stress you're carrying around until you have some kind of stress relieving tool that you start using regularly, and then you start feeling just at ease and things just start getting better, and you realize how much stress you have and how much stress you were able to just let go. So yeah, I mean, we could talk more about stress, but even just that, if all you were doing is managing stress through meditation, it's definitely worth it.
Definitely. That's a great point of view, I would say, for anyone that's maybe has some religious beliefs that are kind of like, I don't know, it kind of goes against my belief system or anything like that. Use it as a practical method to relieve stress. And this
Yeah,
lack of awareness.
one thing I do want to add with this whole, religious belief thing
Mm-hmm.
is that anything that's scientific is not, and I kind of understand where people come from when they try to relate some kind of religion to things like meditation or yoga. But the best thing I could say to anyone is, let's just say, for example, if meditation or yoga originated in some kind of culture, let's say in either Hindu tradition or Buddhist tradition, and it's labeled as like a Buddhist thing or a Hindu thing, it's almost the same as, let's say, if Thomas Edison invented light bulb, and people start saying the light bulb is Christian or something because Thomas Edison was Christian. I don't even know what he was, but I'm just saying if he
He
was,
was
then
Buddhist. No, I'm
people
just kidding.
what was it?
Just kidding.
So people start saying, "Oh, light bulbs, yeah, it's Christian. Like you shouldn't use it because it's Christian. You're not Christian." It's anything that's scientific is universal and it's for everyone. It has no religion behind it. So yeah, just my 2 cents on that.
It's a careful ground to walk on because that's 100% true. But I mean, there's some types of meditation that uses visualization and idols, and we're not going to dive into that. That's for part two.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you were a skeptic
hmm
in meditation. Could you kind of give us a bird's eye view of how you were a skeptic, and how what was your journey that led you onto teaching people how to de-stress their life?
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. So this happened about maybe just about 10 years ago. I was still a very young kid at the time, and I didn't really like I questioned everything at that time. I had this kind of like a rebellious thing about me where I questioned anything like people would mention. I'm like, okay, well, if there's no proof, there's no evidence, it's not real, everything is questionable. But in retrospect, I was a lost child at the time. I was lost. I didn't know what was going on. I was just questioning things to question. But I mean, I was a lost kid. And I remember at the time I actually met this girl who was really into like yoga and meditation and stuff, and she was very mature for who she was at the time. And I guess she came into my life at the right time. And after a while, she's like, you're very like, I feel like you kind of suppress a lot of things and you're not expressing who you are. And I feel like you have this like chakras that are closed. And I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking about, right? Like, what
Get out of
chakra?
here!
Where? Show me the chakra. But one thing I did have going for me, even at that time, is that I was willing to try out new things. I'm like, what the hell? If it's not going to hurt me, I'll try it out. So she mentioned to me that, hey, there's this thing called meditation that you could try, and it really helps you be more present to the moment. It helps you just express yourself more freely. I would recommend you should try it out. And, I didn't think about it much at the time, but as time started going on, maybe like a few months after that, I started thinking about it and doing some research online about meditation and all that stuff. And long story short, what I ended up doing is, now keep in mind at this point, I had never meditated in my entire life.
Mm.
I had heard the word meditation. I didn't know what it was. I thought it's some kind of yoga posture, like you do some kind of posture, yoga, or whatever. I didn't know what this thing was. But then I did some research. I heard, I found out about this, and she recommended that there's like 10-day residential program you could go to. It's called Vipassana for anyone out there, and you could just go in there, do it, and you're gonna notice the difference.
It's terrible.
So I just threw myself in there, man, like a boot camp of meditation for 10 days, brutal, intense. I'm like, all right, I'll just give it a shot. And again, long story short, like the first 3 or 4 days were so challenging for me. I had thoughts about quitting. I had thoughts about just leaving.
Just to
Just
give, I've made other videos and I've written a little article on my experience also attending this 10-day boot camp. But just if you haven't heard of Vipassana, it's a 10-day meditation boot camp is what I like to call it, where it's 100 hours of meditation. You don't have eye contact with another human being, pretty much. Everyone has their head down. There's no human interaction, and it's completely silent for 9.5 days, 10 days.
yeah,
But yeah, so
let's put it this way: like you're basically left with nothing but yourself. There's no distraction whatsoever. So even right now, if you're watching this video, you might have your cell phone in your hand. Like people do that. You're probably playing around with your cell phone right
caught.
now. Very, very, very likely. Okay. So we're constantly plugged in. There's so much distraction around us. Even for you, even for 5 or 10 minutes, for you to like get away from every type of distraction, no TV, no computers, no phones, nothing. That is torturing, man. And imagine 10 full days without anything. Like you checking your cell phone at the front desk when you're checking in. Everything is gone. You're left with yourself and with your thoughts. No communication. You're basically noble silence, so no communication.
Mm-hmm.
It is brutal.
So you went on this, you dived in, you did the thing that the number one meditation teacher in the world would be like, don't do that. You shouldn't do that. You should start slow. You're like, fuck that. I'm going to go compete in the Olympics. So you finish this 10-day boot camp, this series, 100 hours of meditation. What next?
Right. So again, I wouldn't recommend someone jumping to a boot camp like that. But yeah. So what happened after I came out of it, or not even came out of it? Let's even like talk about towards the end of the course, maybe on the 9th or 10th day. The first few days, I really didn't feel much, and I was just frustrated. Just even sitting down for 10, 11 hours a day, my back was hurting, my neck was hurting, and I just felt terrible. I felt miserable. But I just said, let's stick it out. Let's see what happens. So I remember maybe it was the 8th day or 9th day of me meditating. It was nothing too crazy, but I just felt this sense of peacefulness, as if all of a sudden there were these gaps between this crazy thoughts that I had. And I just felt really peaceful, very at ease in the world. And it is something that's very hard to describe. But even after the session that I had, and I remember I got up and I started walking, you're in the woods. So I'm walking in the woods at the time. And it was a feeling of as if like everything was great in the world. Everything was fine. As if you had no problems whatsoever. Yeah, it was, I mean, I've never done any kind of drugs, but I guess like that's kind of like somewhat like doing some type of drugs. I mean, especially like doing some kind of psychedelics. Not at that level, obviously, but that's what I would assume. And a lot of people have related psychedelics with meditation. So I had that feeling just for that, like maybe half a day, maybe even less than that, maybe like a quarter of a day. That feeling really left a sort of like, it was left in my memory. And after I left that whole retreat, I'd say just very practical things that happened to me for a while after that was that I became more conscious of my thoughts. So, for example, like we have about 80,000 thoughts in a day. And the funny thing about that is out of those 80,000 thoughts that we have, 99% of our thoughts are identical from day to day. 99% of our thoughts. Think about it for a second.
Yeah, I heard that it's like 50 to 75,000 thoughts per day. And elite performers have like 5 to 15,000 thoughts a day because they're just solely focused on their path and their purpose. And and it's like 90 to 95% of the same thoughts as yesterday. So it's kind of like this rumination, like a cow eating the same grass over and over. Yeah, continue.
Exactly. So yeah, you're having identical thoughts from day to day. So you know how they say if you change your thoughts, you change your life and all that stuff, which there's a lot of truth to it. So what meditation did was made me aware of the thoughts that I was having. And if you're not aware of something, you can never change it. But when you become aware of the thoughts that you're having, you start thinking about, why am I having this negative thought, or this is self-defeating, or I need to change this. So that was number one thing, was just being aware of my thoughts. Another thing I would say that happened immediately after that was also being aware of my emotions. So from day to day, we maybe feel two or three emotions. We go from maybe being frustrated to just feeling maybe happy to maybe feeling sad, or whatever emotions that we go out through day to day or week to week.
Are you saying we only feel 3 emotions per day?
I don't know the exact number.
I feel like we feel 3 emotions maybe every 10 minutes or every 5 minutes.
The funny thing is that there's about 2 to 3 emotions that we feel all the time. And let's say even if we feel like 4 emotions, 3 of them are probably negative, and just 1 would be positive. Like most of the time, we're feeling negative emotion more often than positive.
For sure, yeah, I would agree that unless you're doing some type of work, or unless you're surrounded in nature or in an uplifting environment, it's highly likely that your default state, your default embodiment, your personality is negative.
Yeah.
For sure, for sure. But there's this one exercise that I always recommend new clients to kind of get this awareness of how there's such a wide range of feelings, for instance. And it's just set, let's say, 5 alarm clocks, and you could do this yourself. I don't know if you've ever experimented with this. Just set 5 alarm clocks per day. Let's say like 9, 1, 3, 5, 7. And bring a journal, and every time it's 9 a.m. or like 9 a.m. alarm clock strikes, you look at you kind of do like a body scan. What am I feeling right now? I'm feeling really happy. 9 a.m. You write down happy. 1, 3. Every time it's going to be different. And it's crazy. You could do this on like a 15-minute scale and realize how you're always feeling something different. And you're always reacting to this environment that you alluded to. And it's kind of shocking the amount of like roller coaster your body's actually going through, and you're not even aware of it. It's that air conditioning noise that's in the background that's so loud, and it's always changing, but you're not even aware of it. And if you just turned it down, it would be like, wow, silence feels good. So I could definitely relate to that.
Yeah, for sure, man. And the thing about emotions is that emotions are fleeting, right? It's just like you mentioned, it's always changing. I remember one time I went to this seminar where some people probably heard of Dan Millman. He was there, and I was talking to him, and he said that
just came out with a new book, I think.
Did it?
Yeah, like 4 Purposes or something.
Well, that's been around for a while.
Oh yeah,
but okay. He is writing a new book. But so I was talking to him, and he told me a story, which was funny. But basically, he was trying to emphasize the point that no matter what emotions you feel, it's gonna go away very soon. It's always fleeting. So he said one time I did this seminar and I rocked the crowd and everything was great. And this guy came up to me, he had a big smile on his face, and he's like, "Dan, you know what? I feel so inspired, Dan. I feel so inspired." And I just looked at him and I said, "Don't worry, it'll pass."
It's the painful truth.
It's true, right?
Yeah.
You could feel inspired today, but tomorrow, it's not guaranteed.
Because that 95%,
Mm-hmm.
And when you're not feeling inspired, it's perfectly okay. And I mean, that's a topic for another time, like accept that feeling, and et cetera, et cetera. But the next thing I want, a common theme that I've noticed in anyone that's started meditating or has lived a life that has a lot of social media, like any man, or let's say any introverted man that has a very rich inner life with all these thoughts, the imagination running wild and everything, it might be difficult for them when they try to sit down sit down in a chair, close their eyes, no distractions, and realize that there's a billion thoughts, just like some people call it the monkey mind, but it's just like one thought after another thought after another thought after another thought. And it's just like anxiety pops up, all these mixed emotions that you become aware of. You become aware of the AC, and you're like, oh my God, that AC is so loud and I hate it. And then they can't meditate. what would you suggest for someone that's experiencing that or going through that right now?
All right, great question. So before I answer that question, let me just talk a little bit about stress, right? Because it is related to stress, and a lot of things are. So we just need to kind of understand what stress is, so we can understand how meditation would help really like get all that out of our system. Okay, so first of all, the simple thing about stress is what people don't realize is that stress makes you stupid. Okay, and let's understand why. So our mind and body, just evolutionary speaking, human beings have existed for, by some accounts, for over millions of years. Now, think about the modern civilization, the modern world that we live in. I mean, at best, it's about 100 years old. The cars, airplanes, and cell phones, and social media, everything, it's just like so new to our human existence. Um, so, if you want to understand stress, let's cut back a few thousand years and what really happens. So stress is typically what's going to happen is fight or flight response is what stress is. And let's say a few thousand years ago, if you were just walking in the jungle, a saber-toothed tiger jumped at you. And what would happen to your body at the time is your body's going to launch into a series of different chemical reaction that you're going to have. So, like the first couple of things that's going to happen to your body, and it's literally happening, is your
Hunger.
digestion. What's that?
Hunger.
Right. So what happens is your digestion floods with acid to shut down your digestion at the time because you don't really need to digest anything. You're about to get killed. Also, what happens when you're in that situation is that your body becomes very acidic. Because when your body is very acidic, let's say if the tiger is about to start eating you, your skin would taste it's not going to taste very good for the tiger to eat you. So he might let you go. So your body's having all this reaction.
I don't know about you, man. I taste pretty good myself. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, not when you're under stress. Also, what happens, the big thing, is your immune system goes on the back burner. Because who cares if you're going to get cancer when you're about to get eaten by a tiger? So just very quickly, just those things happening to your body with stress. Now imagine that would have rarely happened a few thousand years ago when a tiger was to jump on you. Imagine that happening now with people because they have deadlines to meet. Or, there's traffic. There's a lot of traffic. Oh, my God, my body's becoming acidic and, my digestion is slowing down and immune system's going on the back burner is because of traffic. So the thing is that our body and mind is not understanding the kind of like the world that we live in today. And you have to become aware of that, what stress is doing to you. And that's why it's very, very important that we understand that we need to manage stress. And, so that being said, let's talk about the question that you asked, which is, if someone sits down and starts meditating, they're going to have all these demons coming out of their mind because all of us have suppressed so much emotions and so much stuff that we've suppressed for years and years and years. And now we're sitting down and we're becoming aware and it's all coming out what to do. Okay. So first of all, that's why, just on a side note, it's important to have some kind of guidance when you first start meditating, especially if you seriously dive into meditation. It's important to have some kind of guidance, whether you have a meditation teacher or just a friend who's been meditating for a while, just to kind of help you out with your initial stages of meditation.
And what if they don't?
I'm sorry?
What if they don't? They live in like a small town in Minnesota, barely have access to internet. They had to go to the library first thing in the morning because there's only 2 computers at their library. They sign in. It's only for 15 minutes. And then they watch this video 2 days in a row because it's more than 30 minutes. And there's people waiting to use the computer. For that guy.
Right. So what I would say is you have to start small.
Okay.
Start with maybe like 10 minutes of guided meditation to begin with. And then go from there. But the first thing I would tell you straight up is don't be afraid of what's going to be coming out of you because those are going to be, let's just call it detox symptoms. So, if you've ever done any kind of physical detox of like some kind of juice cleansing or any kind of fasting or anything, you would realize that you get headaches and your body aches and you have this other detox symptoms that are happening, right? What it's doing is it's purifying your body, it's cleansing your body. So what you're doing is you're purifying your mind and you're cleansing your mind. So when you go through that shitty time, when you have all this shitty emotions that are just coming to surface, stay with it. Stay with it. So that's like the first thing I'm going to say is if you could get a mentor or someone to guide you, great. If you cannot, that's totally fine. Start small. And when you have those negative feelings, don't be afraid of it and stay with it.
For sure. Yeah, a lot comes to mind when you say that. From my own experience, I remember this, and this is just funny. There's this YouTube channel with hot ones. This is completely random, but it's the first thing that came to mind. I don't know if you've seen their videos. They interview people over hot wings in ascending order, from like not that hot to extremely hot, and they bring celebrities and everything. And as soon as the person being interviewed takes a bite, they ask him a question. So it's a pretty funny concept. And I remember there was this one of Gronkowski. He's like a tight end for the New England Patriots. And he's like the, huge football jock. And there was not much of value in that entire interview. I just watched it kind of on break or whatever. But there was just one golden nugget that stuck with me. And I don't remember exactly what it was. But it was pretty much, he had maybe 2 wings left and he couldn't handle it. It was something like that. He couldn't continue. And it was extremely difficult. Like, he didn't have the, let's say, natural capability to eat spicy food. Like me personally, I love spicy food, but I'll start sweating a lot, and it's hard for me. Gronkowski, the same thing. So, and he's like, if you wanna cut this interview early, it's perfectly fine, or something like that. The interviewer gave him that option. He's like, you know what? No, I'll just go a little bit further. Like, I can continue it a little bit more. That, like, one more rep, that one more set in the gym, that whenever you're sitting down in meditation and you want to stand up, just do one more round where it's like, sit, let that feeling pass over, and it will. And then the next time you want to stand up, let that pass over. And then that third time, if you want to stand up again, stand up. That, like, one more time. Let that feeling pass over, and the next time that feeling passes over, you can stand up. Or when Gronkowski had that wings, like, no, I could do one more. When you want to quit, it's like, let me just go a little bit more. And that was probably the defining success principle, let's say, for his career. And I could definitely see this being applied to, let's say, meditation for someone having difficulty, for all these demons, as you call it, or like this detox process. I'll just go a little bit further. Start with 10 minutes, start with 2 minutes, start with a Vipassana 100-hour retreat if that's your thing. But you have to start somewhere, and you just have to increase it a little bit after that. So I definitely agree with you.
That's a great point. As they say, that growth happens outside of your comfort zone. So
for sure. And with that saying, anything that you want to tell the Wolfpack about Endless Vitality, something about your mission or where they can find you, your description and your YouTube channel and everything will be in the description box. Anything you want to let everyone know?
Well, perfect. I mean, thank you for that, and thanks for the interview. The only thing I would say is that I'm really passionate about really teaching people about health and wellness and meditation. And we didn't go deep into it, but a lot of it is because of where I come from and the difference that I've seen in my life and in the life of a lot of people that I've worked with on a lot of deep cleansing and meditation and all that stuff. It makes a huge difference. I see it, and it's not just certain type of people, but everyone needs it to a certain degree, right? Everyone does. So I'm really passionate about teaching about these things. I'm really passionate about learning about this thing. That's why I'm always on this journey. It's a lifelong journey. I'm always learning. Where's the next book? Where's the next seminar? Who can I learn from? What can I learn? All these things. I'm always doing it, and I want to share it with the world. So yeah, check out my channel. You'd see, a lot of videos on different topics, but I'm always trying to bring my topic to kind of like just being present to the moment and the joy that you get out of that. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you for doing the interview again, and then it was really fun. I know it's almost an hour. We thought maybe we'll talk about it for 20 minutes. We can go on
Yeah,
forever
and
and
we
ever,
didn't
right?
even go deep. So if any of this struck a chord with you, we barely touched the surface on this whole vitality, mindfulness, wellness, this whole area, this de-stressing the different parts of your life. So if any of this touched you in any way, anywhere, check him out. Great person, and there's a lot more value on his own channel. So I will be seeing you soon.